Patients too weak to be moved, but their loved ones won't leave them behind. Israel issued new orders to evacuate parts of Deir el-Balah, forcing the displacement of thousands of Palestinians. The army warns it will launch attacks against Hamas in areas close to this hospital. Its forces have damaged multiple hospitals across the Strip since the start of the war. Ismail's niece, Wiyam, was being treated for injuries. Panicked, he took her, but says he feels powerless to protect her.
Displacement again and again, from Khan Yunis to Rafah, from Rafah to Nusayrat. We went back to our house in Nusayrat. They attacked it and killed my brother. I'm her uncle. Her father and mother were killed. Now I'm responsible for her.
Evacuation orders have come almost daily, shrinking so-called safe zones by tens of kilometers each time. The Al-Aqsa Hospital is the only functioning health facility in the area. A lifeline for 1 million people crammed into central Gaza, it had also become a last refuge for the displaced. Many, sheltering there for months, don't know where they'll sleep tonight.
On the street. Imagine, I'm with my 6 kids on the streets. We were displaced 4 times from northern Gaza, from Khan Yunis, from Deir el-Balah. Nobody's taking care of us. People want to live a normal life. People are looking for money, and instead, they die on the streets.
Health authorities in Gaza say for now the hospital will keep running. But foreign medical staff told Al Jazeera they have received calls from the Israeli military. They were told to leave the facility for their own safety, something these patients are still too helpless to do. Ibtisam Genford, Al Jazeera.
Genocide. Noun. The systematic killing of substantial numbers of people on the basis of their ethnicity, religion, political beliefs, social status, or other particularities. Genocide. Verb. To commit genocide against, to eliminate, a group of people completely.
Gaza is a total disaster. If you can think of something bad that is happening in the world, it's happening in Gaza or to people from Gaza. The things that I saw there that really stood out or really impacted me and made me realize what's actually going on were a few. Number one was the malnutrition and starvation, which is deliberate. That's perfectly obvious. Even American senators are giving speeches saying that it's deliberate. The second thing was the targeting of children with gunfire. That I was not expecting to see. Actually, I knew how many children had been killed. I knew about the massive killing in general, but I just assumed it was all from bombings. But that doesn't explain children getting shot in the head. And definitely not every day. I mean, literally every day I was there, I saw a child shot in the head. That's not an accident. That's deliberate targeting of children for death. That's murder. That is not something that my government should be supporting. That the United States government should not be funding this. Benjamin Netanyahu famously said, if the Americans cut off arms, then we'll fight with our fingernails. Okay, good. You go do that. Go enjoy fighting with your fingernails. Leave my bombs and my guns and my money and my prestige and my government and my people out of it. That's what I would say.
I've seen a whole spectrum of injury patterns inflicted by Israel on Palestinian civilians in Gaza. The injury patterns I've seen most consistently are things like crush injuries as a result of Israeli airstrikes on homes. Between 60 to 70% of those injured and those who make it to the hospital are actually children. I can tell you that I have seen injuries that indicate deliberate targeting of children and deliberate targeting of civilians. So I've seen things like gunshot wounds to the abdomen of children, to the chest. I have documented evidence of gunshot wounds to the extremities of babies. Your priority is saving civilian lives and minimizing civilian casualties, then your responsibility as an American citizen is to advocate for an arms embargo against Israel. I think this is a no-brainer for the American political elite, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, Green Party, Libertarian, it does not matter. The right thing to do is to stop arming Israel.
I received a young boy into the emergency department during one of the mass casualties who had half of his face and neck blown off. Luckily, the organs that are vital for breathing and blood supply to the brain were preserved. They were visible, but preserved. And he was talking to us. He couldn't see himself, so he didn't know what he looked like at that point in time, and he kept asking for his sister. His sister was in the bed next to him. The majority of her body was burned beyond recognition. He didn't recognize that the girl in the bed next to him was his sister. His entire family, parents and the rest of his siblings, were killed in the same attack. That boy survived, and the next day I went to see him, a very young plastic surgeon, one of the few remaining plastic surgeons in Gaza, because the others have either been killed or have fled, understandably, had removed part of his chest and created a graft to cover those vital organs of the neck. He was lying in his bed and mumbling because it was so difficult to talk, and he kept saying, I got really close to him and he said, I wish I had died too. And I said, what? And he said, I think my entire family has gone to heaven. Or it's not my entire family. His exact words were something to the effect of, everybody I love is now in heaven. I don't want to be here anymore. That is one of so many stories. I'm giving you, I'm so sorry, Leila, but I think people need to hear this. I'm giving you the story of one child. One of my healthcare worker colleagues, a young nurse, one of the most dedicated nurses I've ever met, was trying to evacuate a patient when Al-Shifa Hospital was bombed from north to south. He carried that patient, was eventually called by Israeli forces, not by name, but by uniform. You, the person in scrubs, come here. He was subsequently detained for 53 days. He reported physical, sexual, and psychological torture while in detention and ultimately released because he had no crime. After he was released, he worked constantly because one, he was so dedicated, and two, he suffered from severe insomnia from the trauma of his detention. He was always in the resuscitation room of the emergency department, cleaning out sand from the eyes of people pulled from under the rubble, trying to comfort them. One day, overnight, he fell asleep holding the body of a dead child, still with the breathing tube in after they had failed to resuscitate the infant.